Have you ever spent 3 hours overanalyzing a text message just because someone used a period instead of an exclamation point? Have you ever felt a wave of cold dread because a coworker seemed a little off and you were certain it was because of something you did? If your brain constantly defaults to the question, "Are they mad at me?" then today's conversation is going to feel like a much-needed exhale. We are deconstructing the prison of people-pleasing and learning how to finally step outside. Welcome back to the show. Today, we're diving into a book that is part therapy session, part survival guide. Are You Mad at Me? How to Stop Focusing on What Others Think and Start Living for You by psychotherapist Meg Josephson. Whether you consider yourself a perfectionist, a chronic overachiever, or the person who apologizes to the table when you bump into it, we're going to look at why your brain does this. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why people-pleasing isn't a personality flaw, it's actually a survival strategy, and you'll have a roadmap to stop living for everyone else and start living for yourself. Let's start with a scenario most of us know too well. You're at a dinner party or maybe a meeting. You're exhausted, you have a headache, but someone asks for a favor, something that will take up your entire Saturday. Your gut says no, but your mouth says, "Of course, I'd love to help." Why do we do that? Why do we trade our own peace for someone else's comfort? Meg Josephson argues that we've been looking at people-pleasing all wrong. We often treat it like a nice trait or maybe a minor quirk, but Josephson, drawing on her clinical expertise, identifies it as something much deeper, a trauma response known as fawning. Think back to being a kid. If you grew up in an environment where emotions were unpredictable or where you only felt safe when the adults around you were happy, you learned a skill. You learned to scan the room. You learned to read micro-expressions. You became a chameleon because being what others wanted you to be was how you stayed safe. The problem is you're not a kid anymore, but your nervous system is still stuck in that scan and appease mode. You're still trying to manage everyone else's emotions so that you can feel okay. The book breaks down several roles we play to keep the peace. There's the peacekeeper, who avoids conflict at all costs, the performer, who thinks they're only worthy if they're achieving, the caretaker, who ignores their own burnout to fix everyone else, and the lone wolf, who stays distant so they never have to be a burden. Do any of these sound like you? I'll be honest, as I was reading this, I felt personally attacked by the over-explainer section. You know, when you spend 10 minutes explaining why you can't make it to a brunch, when "I can't make it" is a perfectly valid sentence. Now, before we get into how to actually break these patterns and the concept of leaning back in relationships, let's take a quick pause. If you're listening to this and realizing you've been living your life as a chameleon, you aren't alone. If you want more deep dives into the psychology of how we live and how we can live better, please hit that subscribe button. Leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps the show reach people who might be stuck in these exact same cycles. Let's help them find their way out together. Back to Meg Josephson's insights. One of the most revolutionary things she discusses is the idea of leaning back. For a chronic people-pleaser, relationships are high effort. You are always leaning in, checking in, making sure they're okay, initiating the plans, managing the vibe. Leaning back means stopping that frantic energy. It means allowing a silence to exist. It means letting the other person carry their half of the emotional weight. It sounds terrifying, right? Because if you stop holding it all up, you're afraid it will all fall down. But Josephson argues that this is the only way to see which relationships are actually real. She also tackles our fear of conflict. For a fawner, conflict feels like death. It feels like the end of a relationship. But the book reclaims conflict as an opening. If you never tell someone when they've hurt you, you aren't actually close to them. You're just close to a version of them that doesn't know the real you.
Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They are the gates that let the right people in. One of my favorite exercises in the book involves rethinking the bad guy narrative. We are so afraid of being seen as bad or difficult that we become invisible. Josephson challenges us to be okay with being the villain in someone else's story if that's what it takes to be the hero of our own. If someone is mad at you because you finally said no, that's not a reflection of your character. It's a reflection of their expectation that you would always say yes. So how do we apply this? As we wrap up, let's look at the "Are you mad at me?" survival kit. First, recognize the fawn response. When you feel that urge to over-apologize or over-explain, pause, take a breath. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to or because I'm afraid they'll be upset? Second, practice the pause. You don't have to answer every request immediately. "Let me check my calendar and get back to you" is a superpower. It gives your nervous system time to settle so you can give an honest answer, not a fear-based one. Third, embrace the discomfort of leaning back. Let the text sit for a while. Let the silence happen in the car. You are not the emotional janitor of the world. You don't have to clean up every awkward moment. And finally, remember that no is a complete sentence. It doesn't need a 3-paragraph justification. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know this topic can be heavy. It's hard to realize how much of ourselves we've given away just to feel safe. But as Meg Josephson shows us, the moment you stop asking, "Are you mad at me?" is the moment you start asking, "Am I happy with me?" If you found value in this episode, share it with that one friend who always says sorry for no reason. You know the one. Let's start a revolution of people who are kind but not compliant. Until next time, take up space, speak your truth, and remember, you are allowed to be difficult if it means being yourself.